This is Count Dooku. This figure released in 2013, exclusive to the dual on Geonosis. Overall, this is a great figure with very nice printing on his torso, but sadly no leg printing. And he does also have a very nice cape and a great face print. And he does use the nice slick back hair in white. And he does include his very nice curved hilt in chrome, but sadly the chrome paint can chip very easily. And this is the second face. And sadly, my figure has a crack. This figure is currently worth $164 new and $76 used. This is the Imperial Stormtrooper. This figure released in 6 sets and 5 watches from 2007 through 2015. Overall, this is a pretty good figure with very simple printing on his torso. It's a pretty nice printing on his helmet, but sadly, he does not have any leg printing. And underneath his helmet, he just has a regular plain black head. And compared to all of the previous Stormtroopers, this figure has very minor differences. This figure is currently worth about $10 new and $6 used. This is Professor Huyang. This figure released in 2023, exclusive to Ahsoka's T6 Jedi Shuttle. Overall, this is a great figure with very detailed printing on his torso and legs, and even some feet printing, which isn't too common. And he does also have this nice little printed towel on his back. And the figure does have this very nice molded head with great printing. But I do wish that the figure was flat silver instead of tan, because that would have been more accurate. And I do kind of wish that he had a unique mold for his torso and legs, because the character is pretty skinny. This figure is currently worth about $10 new and used. This is Qui Gon Jinn. This figure released in 2017, exclusive to the duel on Naboo. Overall, this is a great figure with a pretty nice print on his torso, but sadly the tan printing on his legs is still pretty faded. And he has this very nice hairpiece and a great face. And something pretty gruesome about this figure is that his second face is the expression he makes when he gets stabbed. This figure is currently worth $31 new and $15 used. This is the Rebel Fleet Trooper. This figure released in 2 sets from 2023 through 2024, that being the Yavin 4 Rebel base and the boarding the Tantive 4. Overall, this is a very nice figure with a pretty nice torso print, face print with his chin strap, but I do wish the figure had some dual molded legs. And this is the second face. And one issue I have with this figure is that the connection on his helmet is pretty weak. And virtually the same figure, just with a slightly different face print, also appeared in 3 sets. This figure is worth $5 both new and used. This is the 187 Trooper. This figure released in 2023, exclusive to the Republic Fighter Tank. Overall, this is a great figure with amazing printing on his torso and legs, which is pretty much just some purple shock trooper armor, but he has a strap. And he does have a great helmet with some very nice printing. And this was one of the last figures to use this helmet before LEGO reverted to the new one. And this figure actually is not the canon 187 Trooper. This figure is actually taken from Legends. And as expected, underneath, he just has a regular clone head. This figure is currently worth about $15 new and $13 used. This is Obi Wan Kenobi. This figure released in 2005, exclusive to the General Grievous Chase. Overall, this is a pretty good figure with a very simple print on his torso and no leg printing, and a very nice face. And there is actually 3 other Obi Wan figures that are very similar to this one, but they all have their little headset. And he does have this very nice cape made of the more papery material, and unsurprisingly, he doesn't have a back print. This figure is currently worth about $40 new and $21 used. This is Chancellor Palpatine. This figure released in 2023, exclusive to the Coruscant Guard gunship. Overall, this is a great figure with excellent printing on his torso and skirt, and even some printing on the back of the skirt. And he also has this great hairpiece and an excellent face print. And his second face is a bit more menacing. This figure is currently worth about $26 new and $22 used. This is Chewbacca. This figure released in 13 sets from 2004 through 2013. Overall, this is a very simple figure with a very minor printing just for his bandolier and his nose, and there isn't even any printing for his eyes. And this figure does use the reddish brown, which is different to the new ones, because the new Chewbaccas use dark brown. And the older one is actually slightly shorter than the new ones. And the figure sadly does not have any leg printing, and as expected, he doesn't have any printing on his torso. This figure is currently worth about $7 new and $4 used. This is Darth Maul. This figure released in 2024, exclusive to the Visual Dictionary. Overall, this is a pretty good figure with a very simple print on his torso and face. And this figure is actually a recreation of the Darth Mauls that released from 1999 through 2009. But this one has a 25 years of the Phantom Menace print on the back. And the figure does have a cape made of the more papery material, and no second face, but that makes sense. And even though this figure technically isn't a 25 years of LEGO Star Wars figure, I would still recommend that you buy a stand and put him with the rest. This figure is somehow worth $31 new, even though the book he comes in is only $25. This is the TIE Defender palette. This figure released in 2 sets from 2010 through 2011, that being the TIE Defender, the 2011 Advent Calendar. Overall, this is a very nice figure, with a very simple print on his torso and helmet, and his helmet doesn't even have any printing for his eyes. And the figure does not have a back print, any leg printing, or even a face print. It's just a plain black head. This figure is currently worth about $7 new and $3 used. This is the Cantina Bartender, aka Wuher. This figure released in 2 sets from 2018 to 2020, that being the Monstasi Cantina and the Master Builder Series Monstasi Cantina. Overall, this is a pretty good figure, with a very simple print on his torso, which shows a bit of his chest, and luckily, the light nougat printing isn't too washed out. And he also has a very nice face print, with some stubble and some scars. But sadly, the figure doesn't have any leg printing. And this is the second face. This figure is currently worth about $6 new and $4 used. This is the Phase 2 Clone Gunner. This figure released in 2022, exclusive to the ATTE. Overall, this is a pretty good figure, with a very nice print on his torso to show some extra battle damage and some extra armor. And he uses the regular clone legs, and he does have some nice printing on his helmet, also to show some battle damage. But sadly, the helmet holes particularly don't look good on this figure. And as expected, underneath, he just has a regular clone head. This figure is currently worth about $15 new and $13 used. This is Jango Fett. This figure released in 2013, exclusive to the Corporate Alliance Tank Droid. Overall, this is a great figure, with very nice silver printing on his torso for his chest plate, and some very nice sand blue arms and legs. And he also has this very nice jetpack piece in silver, and a great helmet. And there is a far better Jango Fett figure, with way more detailed printing on his torso and legs, and even an angry face, but that figure is worth like $200. And underneath his helmet, he has a smiling face. And underneath his jetpack, he does have a pretty nice back print. This figure is currently worth about $94 new and $46 used. This is Aayla Secura. This figure released in 2010, exclusive to the Clone Turbo Tank. Overall, this is a pretty good figure, with very nice printing on her torso and on her Leku, but she still uses the uncanny Clone Wars face. Sadly, the figure does not have any leg printing, nor a second face, but that wasn't too common in 2010. And there is a far better, more realistic style of Aayla Secura that released in 2017. This figure is currently worth about $48 new and $32 used. This is Darth Vader. This figure released in 3 sets, 4 watches, and 1 magnet pack from 2009 through 2016. Overall, this is a pretty good figure, with very detailed printing on his torso, which does look pretty modern, but he doesn't have any leg printing. And he does still use the old Darth Vader helmet, and he has the more paper cape. And unsurprisingly, he doesn't have a back print, but he does have a pretty nice face print. And this figure was one of the first Star Wars figures to use these eyes, because previously, all minifigures had fully black eyes. This figure is currently worth about $28 new and $12 used. This is the Rancor. This figure released in 2013, exclusive to the Rancor pit. And this figure is not a minifigure, he is actually classified as a big fig, but I still wanted to talk about him. The figure does have great arms, which can move up and down, and pretty nice fingers, but if you push the fingers too far back, they can pop out pretty easily. And the same goes for the other side, but his other arm actually has a stud with a chain. And he also has a very detailed tail, and 4 studs on the top. But sadly, the figure's legs cannot move. And you can open up his jaw, and there is a pretty big area in there, which you can actually fit a whole minifigure in. So far, this has been our only Rancor figure. This figure is currently worth about $185 new and $138 used. This is Jedi Bob. This figure released in 2024, exclusive to Jedi Bob Starfighter. Overall, this is a great figure with a very nice print on his torso, which does have some marks in between the lines, because that is meant to show that the figure has been played with over the years. And he does not have any leg printing, but that makes sense because this character is a remake of the original Jedi Bob that released in 2002. And he does have the nice spongy cape, and a great face print, which also has the marks in his beard. And unlike the original figure, he does have a second face. And his second face is just a bit more of a stern look. And the figure does not have a back print, but that also makes sense. But I do wish that his lightsaber had the lighter green, because that would have been more faithful to the original set. And because the figure did just release, I couldn't find any being sold. This is the Robo Trooper. This figure released in 2016, exclusive to the TIE Striker. Overall, this is a great figure with a very nice torso print, which has a lot of detail and a pretty nice leg print. And he also has a great exclusive helmet, which does remind me of the helmets that they wore in Endor. And he has a pretty nice face print, and his second face is a bit more battle ready. And the figure does include this very weird looking gun. This figure is currently worth about $24 new and $13 used. This is the Phase 1 Clone Gunner. This figure released in 2 sets from 2009 to 2010. That being the Clone Walker Battle Pack and the Playscale Venator. Overall, this is a very nice figure with a pretty nice torso print, which has some extra armor, and a great helmet, which is done in the Clone Wars style. But sadly, the figure does not have any leg printing, and underneath his helmet, he still has the pretty uncanny Clone Wars head. This figure is currently worth about $18 new and $8 used. This is Chirrut Îmwe. This figure released in 2016, exclusive to the Imperial Hover Tank. Overall, this is a very nice figure with a pretty nice torso print and this great cloth piece. It is all dark red except for some black printing on it, and it does wrap around his entire waist. And the figure does not have any leg printing, and that does make sense, because if the figure did, most of it would have been covered up by his cloth. Also, it does have this pretty nice face print, and his eyes are actually a very light blue, because the character in-universe is blind. And he does have the very nice slick back hair, and a clip on his back for his staff. And he does have a pretty simple back print, and a pretty nice second face. This figure is currently worth about $34 new and $17 used. This is the Sandtrooper. This figure released in 2020, exclusive to the Master Vader series, Mos Eisley Cantina. Overall, this is a pretty nice figure, with great printing on his torso and legs, which has some sand on it, and even a print for an ammo pouch on his torso. And he also has that same sand printing on his helmet. And while normally, I'm not the biggest fan of his helmets because they normally can't move, because of his backpack, it can move a lot better. And his backpack is actually this pretty nice brick build. And it also has this great pauldron piece in black, and a decent face print underneath. This figure is currently worth about $24 new and $18 used. This is ARC Trooper 5s. This figure released in 2024 as a 25th anniversary figure exclusive to the board game Nintendo 4. Overall, this figure definitely could have been done better. First off, the printing on his helmet is wildly inaccurate, and his pauldron doesn't fold down at all, so it looks more like a plate. Which confuses me because LEGO totally just should have reused the pauldron on the last ARC Trooper and changed the color to either black or gray. I also kind of wish that they reused the helmet mold from the last ARC Trooper. Otherwise, he has pretty good printing on his torso, but the ammo pouch is pretty oversized, and he does have very nice printing on his arms, and some nice leg printing. But sadly, he does have a printed waist cape, but that is to be expected. And he does have this pretty nice brick build backpack. And he has an excellent face print, even with his 5 tattoo. This figure is currently worth about $22 both new and used. This is the Ackbar Trooper. This figure released in 2024, exclusive to Jedi Bob Starfighter. Overall, this is a very weird figure. He is a part of the new Rebuild the Galaxy show, where the whole universe pretty much gets messed up, so it kind of makes sense. But the figure has the same torso and legs as the normal clone troopers, and a regular Admiral Ackbar head, which I wouldn't be surprised if LEGO just took this headpiece from a different figure. But the headpiece does have great printing on the top, and some very nice printing for his eyes. And he has a pretty standard back print. And because the figure did just release, I couldn't find any being sold. This is the Gamorrean Guard. This figure released in 2 sets from 2012 to 2013. That being Jabba's Palace and the Rancor pit. Overall, this is a very nice figure, with some pretty simple printing on his legs, and some great printing on this mold for his torso and body, which is similar to the Chewbacca's, where it's all one piece. And unsurprisingly, there isn't a print on his torso, but it didn't really need one. This figure is currently worth about $27 new and $17 used.